So, good evening, everyone. We welcome you to this webinar on social return on investment. We have with us Ms. Ananya Prabhavalkar. She is a development consultant and is alumnus of NMIMS, having specialization in social entrepreneurship. She was in employment in NMIMS from 2007 to 2011 and contributed to research, teaching, and management development programs of Jasani Center of Sustainability Management and Social Entrepreneurship. She has worked with research team of NMIMS in the area of strategic review, social audit, social and economic impact assessment, and calculation of social return on investment. She is currently associated with the organization as a visiting faculty, handling courses in the areas of finance, and is also working as freelance development consultant. As an independent consultant, she has undertaken social impact assessment studies, SROI studies, and documentation of annual CSR reports with NGOs and company. So, on behalf of Institute of Social Auditors of India, I welcome you, ma'am, and
Thank you.
over to you now. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Hello, everyone. Today session, I'll be focusing on concept of social return on investment, which is considered as one of the tools for social impact assessment. And I have been teaching this course on social return on investment and conducting SROI for companies as well as social enterprises for last few years. And it is comparatively a new concept in India, where we convert social outcomes or social impact indicators into financial value. Since many companies today or social enterprises today are interested in understanding whether their investment is creating that much impact or no, and they want to know it in monetary terms, this concept came into existence where you convert your social impact indicators into monetary indicators. But when you will go through this entire session, you will realize that these indicators, the qualitative indicators that we look at in social impact assessment, we convert into monetary value, and it's more of a hypothetical or assumption based concept where you try and allot values to social impact assessment. Now, let me just share the PPT. Okay. So, social return on investment, SROI, is basically a framework which is focusing on social, economic, and environmental cost and benefits. So when any company in their CSR projects or any social enterprise in their regular activities make investment in social projects, what are the effects in terms of social impact? What are the effects in terms of financial impact and environmental impact are taken into consideration vis-a-vis the cost that has been put into the project. Now, when we say cost, it is not only monetary value or the cost of the project, but they also look at different inputs that go into it, like people contributing their time, effort, skills, knowledge. So whatever input is going into the project, that is also given a value, and whatever is achieved, that is also given a monetary value, and the ratio is calculated of benefits and cost. In that, of course, the social outcomes are not achieved within a year's time. It takes time, on an average 3 to 5 years, we say, where you start getting social outcomes. And number of years, we also take into the consideration the number of years that outcome will last so that the impact is created. So there is a difference between these terminologies. So when we are looking at SROI, basic understanding of social output, outcome, and impact is very important. Output is something that you immediately achieve. Like if I suppose I'm conducting, say, vocational training program for youth, number of people who have completed that training program and who got employment opportunities is your social output. Those who sustain that employment for more than a year and there is a significant change in their income, in their standard of living, in their approach towards sustaining that employment is your social outcome. And when I continue with that employment or I learn something on that job, I improve my skills, I look for better opportunities in the future, and that brings behavioral change in me. That is where we look at social impact. So, all these indicators have to be taken into consideration when you are calculating SROI. There has to be clarity in what is output, what is outcome, and what is impact. And these indicators have to be taken into consideration, listed down, and then the value is assigned to these indicators. Uh, in this, positive as well as negative indicators are taken into consideration. We will, when we are discussing it in the future, I'll tell you how the values are assigned for positive as well as negative outcomes. So there is a difference in your regular return on investment and social return on investment. Or regular return on investment, you are looking at clearly financial value that you are getting from your investment. Whereas here you are looking at social, environmental, or cultural indicators and assigning value to it. So it is a measurement where you look at, you actually focus on different concept in social impact assessment. Cost benefit analysis is taken into consideration. There is a mechanism of social accounting that also is taken into consideration. And regular social impact assessment reports that we write, those aspects are also taken into consideration. So this something works on a different concepts, bring them together, and then you come up with SROI. So your regular cost benefit analysis, which you use in financial aspects, is your ultimate value calculation. But social accounting is something where you interact with your stakeholders, you identify what activities have been carried out, how those activities have changed the lives of the beneficiaries and other stakeholders, and then you identify qualitative and quantitative indicators for these uh, activities. That is your social impact assessment. And then you identify the value, cost and benefit value. So there are a number of aspects this particular concept looks at. And ultimately, it's a measurement approach that you take that I have invested X amount. What am I achieving from that? Uh, this is what SROI is. So, in some simple terms, the ratio is present value of benefits divided by the total investment. When I say total investment, it is not cost of the project. It is the total value of inputs that is going into it. So we are going to look at what is input value and what is outcome values. But this is what present value of benefits divided by total investment. This is how SROI is calculated. Now, in this also, we use concept of time value of money, present value. The reason is, as I said, no impact or outcome is achieved in 1 year's time. It takes time. Any behavioral change, any social change requires time. It depends on your project, how long that time will take place. For example, as I said, if you are looking at vocational training program and employment opportunities aligned with it, you normally get to see change in 2 to 3 years' time. The person completes the vocational training program, then gets some job somewhere, and then slowly he learns on a on job. He develops certain skills, then maybe he wants to upgrade it or wants to change the job. So that change slowly happens. But you see that change happening in, say, 3 years' time, maximum 5 years' time. But certain projects, like those who are working into mental health sector or environmental sector, those projects take really long time to bring a change, especially for something like mental health, or you don't know when that person's behavior will actually change, and whether it will sustain for a long time or no. So, and every person or every beneficiary will take different time frame to make that behavioral change. So, in that case, you cannot really have 3 to 5 years timeline for these type of projects. Similarly, projects which are into, say, environment related, something like watershed management or tree plantations that you are doing, so changing the air quality, all that. Now you will plant a sapling today, it will take another 20 years to have a proper big tree, and then it will have a change in on air quality if you have a good amount of trees planted in that particular region. Similarly, watershed management, even if you have a check dams, or even if you construct certain uh, ponds or small tanks to save water, the ground level, of that particular area, ground level water, every area will have a different time frame to improve that ground level water tables. So in that case, you cannot really have a specific time frame. So present value of benefits we calculate depending on the project, how many years it will take, and for every indicator, your time frame could be different. It is not necessary that you will use 10 years for all the indicators. It depends on the indicators, depends on the stakeholder who is getting benefited. You assign the time frame, and accordingly you calculate present value benefits. Okay. Uh, Now, SROI concept we use both ways, evaluative and forecast. Evaluative is, of course, much easier to implement because you have already implemented the project and you know or you can see the difference that is happening in the society. So, in that case, you can get actual data from your beneficiaries, from your stakeholders to identify indicators. Forecast normally is calculated when you have to prepare more like a business plan for social enterprises and present it to your investors. And you want to show that how much social value your organization will create in the future. But forecast is completely assumption based. You are actually imagining that certain social outcomes will be achieved after certain time frame, and based on that you are calculating values. Whereas in case of evaluative, at least you can identify certain social outputs and outcome indicators when you interact with your stakeholders. So this is comparatively realistic. Evaluative, forecast is more of assumption based, but both ways you can calculate. And many times, social entrepreneurs who are developing their business plans, they go for a forecast to convince their investors that they will achieve certain outcomes, social outcomes, and it will give them a value for their outcomes. How does this SROI concept benefits? See, the idea of this social return on investment was initially developed in UK. There is an organization called Social Value International who came up with this concept, where the idea is, how does a beneficiary value that particular activity? So if I'm a beneficiary of mental health program, uh, and I'm attending counseling sessions, how do I value that particular counseling session? I can assign it a value of 5,000 rupees. I can assign it a value of 50,000 rupees or 5 lakh rupees. It is my own perception. So in this concept, the basic thing that you look at is the perception of your stakeholder, perception of your beneficiary, mainly beneficiary, but you are not focusing only on one beneficiary, you are looking at different stakeholders. So how does that stakeholder value your project and assign certain monetary indicator to that? So in this concept, the basic thing you have to do is have a formal dialogue with your stakeholders. That is very important. So you need to have questionnaires or some sort of interviews with your stakeholders to identify what benefits they are getting. And this way, you can identify what are the gaps in your project, or if there are any gaps in implementation, or the activities are not actually reaching out to the beneficiaries. So these gaps, these problems can be identified through that, which helps you to take your strategic decisions. It also helps you to change your program, diversify or expand your activities depending on the requirement. So this entire concept is built on the thing of formal dialogue with your stakeholders. Once you have identified the problems, the benefits of your program from your stakeholders, you can accordingly, allocate appropriate resources for that particular project, which will help you to maximize social value, because your beneficiary is telling you whether you are achieving that social value or no. So in that case, accordingly you can change your decisions, accordingly you can introduce new activities or discontinue with existing certain activities and make changes into it, and based on that you can maximize your social value in the future. And that is where this concept is very beneficial. So what are the steps in this SROI? It starts with establishing scope and identifying key stakeholders. As I said, your entire concept is based on a formal dialogue with stakeholders. So, your first thing in this activity is identifying your main stakeholders, and then which stakeholders you want to focus to calculate social return on investment. Once you have done that, second step is where you map your outcomes. Now, mapping outcomes is the most important step in this, because your outcomes are going to give you the financial value. So, in that case, you need to identify correct indicators for your social outcomes. Though we keep talking about social impact, ideally, we look at outcomes, not really impact, because impact we don't know when we will achieve. There is no timeline, fixed timeline. As I said, every project will have a different timeline. Every beneficiary will have a different timeline. Even if I go for a vocational training program today and get a job, it is not necessary that I'll sustain that job. Secondly, and that sustaining could be related to different aspects where I don't perform and the company throws me out, or I have certain family responsibilities because of which I quit my job and sit at home. So there could be different reasons for it for every individual. So for that, identifying impact and how long it will sustain is very, very difficult. So we focus on outcomes and we stop at outcomes. We don't really go at impact indicators. Once we have identified these outcome indicators, next step is where we give them a value. And then we establish that, okay, this particular outcome will last for next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And that is how we establish that impact. That we assume that if I get a job, if I'm earning X amount, this will improve my standard of living. This will change my quality of life for next 5 years. After 5 years, I have to change my job. I have to upgrade my skills. Maybe I'll have to go for a higher education to improve it further. So my existing training program will help me only for next 5 years. So I assume that for certain time frame, this will be helpful. Beyond that, if I want to improve my situation, I have to go for second level of training, or I have to learn something new. So that is where you are identifying the time frame for it, and then establishing impact accordingly. Then you calculate SROI, as I said, present value of benefits and total cost, and then you write it in a report. Now, in that, this entire thing we make it in a table format, which is called a impact map, where you identify stakeholders, then you assign input to it, output, outcome values, and then how long those outcomes will sustain. Based on that, the entire calculation is done. So we'll look at every step so that you will understand how it is carried out. So first step is where you are establishing a scope. Now, why do you want to carry out social return on investment? Um, Many times, as I said, this concept is something which is more assumption based, more hypothetical. So many companies don't really rely on this because you can give values based on assumptions. Uh, because for social indicators, there cannot be a actual value, there cannot be a market rate. So in that case, you assume that, okay, this particular indicator is worth 5,000 or 10,000, and then you assign value. So in that case, why do you want to do it? Most of the time, this is carried out, this activity, in addition to your qualitative social impact assessment report. For example, recently I carried out one social impact assessment report for reconstruction of housing in Gujarat for a organization, Aga Khan का एक organization है. For that, I carried out that. So they wanted a qualitative report as well as SROI. So it just adds value to your qualitative report. You are giving, nobody has a time to read 50 pages, 100 pages report. So you are just giving an impact map along with your report. You are also attaching certain case studies to it. So it adds value to it. So those who want to look at quick figures can look at SROI. Those who are interested in looking how the change has happened and want to read out everything, they can look at the entire report or focus on only success stories or case studies into it. So it's a added thing to a social impact assessment report. When you are approaching an investor and doing a forecast, of course, this is more useful because you are telling the investor you invest X amount and you will get Y returns on it. So that's why people do it. But most of the time, you will find that it is an addition to qualitative report because you cannot completely justify your values here. Qualitative indicators are added to it, or qualitative report is added to it. So, is it your investors are interested in having this report, or is it your trustees who are asking for it? Depending on that, your objective of this SROI has to be written. Secondly, who is your audience when you come up with SROI report? Who is going to read it? Who is going to evaluate it? That is also important. Your beneficiaries don't read your SROI report. Most of the time, as I said, again, your trustees or board of directors and your investors are the one who are interested in this report. What background you are looking at? Background in the sense when this project was started. Is it like 50-year-old project? Is it a recent project? Because you need to have enough data to calculate SROI. And secondly, you cannot do it for a project which is very young, like 6 months old project, because there you will not find indicators. Again, all your indicators will be assumption based because, as I said, 3 to 5 years is a timeline you need to see social outcomes. So, in that case, you first go through the background of the project, when it was started, whether you have enough data on that, whether you have enough information for getting data from your stakeholders. Like one of the organization had approached me to calculate SROI for their beneficiaries, and their project was 10-year-old project, but they did not have a contact details of their 10-year-old beneficiaries. They had been contact details of last 3 4 years beneficiaries. Now how do I get in touch with those stakeholders and get information from them if the contacts or basic feedback is not taken after the project has been implemented? So we started with SROI, and then we realized that we are not getting primary data from the stakeholders. So we moved to social impact assessment report, qualitative report, and discontinue with the SROI because that information was not there. So whether the organization is maintaining that information or no, that also you have to look at. Then what resources the organization has to carry out SROI. Do you have an internal expert or a team which can do? Because as I said, it's a primary data collection. It doesn't happen overnight. You will have to spend about 2 to 3 months to get collect correct information, convert it into it, and convert it into value and prepare a report. It is not a week's time that you interact with your stakeholders and quickly prepare a report. It takes a good amount of time. So, do you have resources, financial as well as expertise into it? Do you want to hire a external consultant? Most of the times, organization prefer to have a external consultants. Reason is it is then the data that you get is not a biased data. Uh, and external consultants know what data to capture, what indicators to identify, so it becomes easier. So, who will carry out this activity? Whether your team or a external person, that also has to be identified. SROI can be used for one activity, one project, one program, or for the entire organization. Of course, if you're doing it for the entire organization, it's a really long term process. But if you're doing it for one activity or one project, it is much faster, it's much practical to implement. So many times, organization starts with one project and then slowly do it for different projects. Thirdly, what period you are looking at? As I said, if it's a 50-year-old project, do you want to look at all 50 years to see what social outcomes have you achieved? And do you have a data for last 50 years? Otherwise, on an average, you will find organizations look at last 5 years or 10 years timeline because that is manageable. Data is available. Beneficiaries can be contacted. Your secondary material is there in the office. It's maintained well. So last 5 to 10 years is on an average manageable thing for the organization. But if your organization has really good digital practices and have maintained the data for last number of years, you can go for more number of years. And whether you want to do it for forecast or evaluation, because based on that, your uh, entire activity strategy will be decided. Because if it's a forecast, as I said, it's more assumption based. You will not be interacting with the many stakeholders because you don't have it. It's a forecast. Evaluation, you have your beneficiaries in place, you have your office staff, those who have implemented the project team, partners of that organization, all stakeholders are there, and you have to develop interview schedules or questionnaires for them, get data from them. So that you have to decide whether you want to do it for forecast. So once you have identified this information based on what is a purpose, what is your audience, what is the background of the project or a organization, whether you have enough resources available, all that has to be listed somewhere to start off your SROI activity, to write down your objective of SROI. So, for example, we can focus on only 1 year's activities. It is possible. Uh, it can be a forecast. So this is an example where you list down what you're going to focus in SROI. Whether your internal staff wants to carry it out or you want external consultants to do it, all that you list it down. That is your first step in SROI. Next step in SROI is, as I said, stakeholders are the most important aspect of it. So, listing your stakeholders. Now, when we say stakeholders, stakeholders are those who are who are affected by your project and who can affect your project. Those could be primary stakeholders and secondary stakeholders, or you can call it a direct stakeholders and indirect stakeholders. Now, in that case, you have to list down all stakeholders. First thing after writing your scope, next step is you list down absolutely every stakeholder that you feel is linked to your project. Most of the time, what happens is, especially in social impact assessment, organization looks at the primary beneficiary of the project. They do not look at indirect or secondary beneficiaries of the project. Now, if you add secondary beneficiary, it will increase your social value. So it is important that you look at even secondary stakeholders and identify whether they are relevant to your project or not. For example, again, if we take the same example of vocational training program, I'm a trainee of that program and I get employment. I'm a primary beneficiary, the direct stakeholder, you can say. Okay. When I'm getting benefited by that program, even my family members get benefited because my income goes up. I start contributing to my family's income. Secondly, I'm going out of house for say 6 hours, 8 hours for my work, and I'm learning something new, which I might teach to my family members, or I might encourage my family members to join that training program or learn something new, take up a take up another job, something which will bring some behavioral change in the family, or the fights that I used to have sitting at home with my family members are now reduced. The tension that my parents had because I was not working or not learning anything. Now it's reduced. So, all these indicators affect not just me, but my family. Now, my family becomes an indirect stakeholder. They are not attending any training program, they are not directly getting any income from the training program. But they are also getting benefited because now I'm getting out of the house, I'm learning something new, and I come back and either teach them, or since I'm out, I'm not sitting and fighting with them, or now they feel that okay, now I'm settling down and I have some growth perspectives in the future. So that way their tension, their interaction with me, the overall behavior in the family will slowly change. Our standard of living will change, our quality of life will change, so all this will affect my family members. So when I'm listing stakeholders, you should not look at only primary beneficiary. You also have to look at secondary beneficiaries. Suppose we take a example of say primary education related programs. So there are organizations who provide digital support in the schools, or a program like Teach for India program where they give additional support in the school for children to learn in a better way. So their teachers are there, their additional staff is there who is helping them, there is a lot of material that is provided. So basically additional support is provided so that the children learn in a better way. So in that case, is it that the child is the only beneficiary? No, child is getting benefited, but child's family members are also getting benefited. Teachers who are teaching in that class are also getting benefited because they also learn a lot of things from uh, the support that is provided by Teach for India or similar programs. Or if there are digital tools provided in the school, they are also learning how to use these digital tools. So teachers are also getting benefited. The support staff that is there in the class is also getting benefited. So it's not only child who gets benefited, there are other stakeholders who are sitting in this class or are related to that child, those also get benefited by it. So you have to take into consideration those stakeholders. So when we are looking at SROI or social impact assessment for that matter, you have to list down all stakeholders and then identify stakeholders who will get maximum benefit of your project. So that is your primary beneficiary, but also there are other beneficiaries which are not the objective of the project, but still they are getting benefited by your project. Okay. Similarly, there are certain intended and unintended outcomes that you see. Suppose you are implementing, say, watershed management program in any village. You basically say 5 farmers from that village contact you that they have a problem with water availability. You identify there is a small spring that goes from that village, and you then help them to have a small construction of small water tank, which will help them, those 5 farmers, to use that water in their farming or agricultural practices and improve the water level in that area. Now, The project is implemented for those five farmers. But when the water tank is constructed, other villagers also start using water from that. It improves the groundwater tables because water is stored there and it is percolated down. So obviously, your groundwater tables improve over a period of time. Many times you will find where there are check dams are constructed or some sort of a activity where the water storage is improved in that area. It's not only one farmer who gets benefited, but other villagers also start using that water for drinking water, for agricultural practices. And now, when you look at the benefit of it, it has a lot of intended, unintended benefits. One is the agricultural practices are improved. Farmer can do farming for entire year and does not have to depend on monsoon. But there is also water availability for women. They don't have to walk few kilometers to get water, fetch water, or there they can give more time to their family, which they were spending earlier for fetching water. So all these things are indirect benefits that you get. Okay, and there could be unintended negative outcomes also. When because we river or a spring doesn't go through only one village, it goes through number of villages. So if you are stopping water at one point, next village, which was supposed to get a regular flow of water, uh, that might get affected. Okay, so there could be a negative outcome on that in that particular village where they will also have to look at a watershed management practice to improve their water levels. So when you are implementing a project, you will realize that there is not just one beneficiary. You implement it for one beneficiary, but actually benefits are taken by number of stakeholders. All those stakeholders have to be listed and taken into consideration. So most of the time we prepare this simple table where you list down all your stakeholders and then you identify what are the positive and negative impact on these stakeholders. Um, so once you have listed that, you can identify the stakeholders which has maximum impact indicators and you select that because every project will have say 15, 20 stakeholders. Absolutely everything, government bodies, your knowledge partners, technology partners, everything that investors. Once you list down everybody, you will realize that on an average 15 stakeholders you get for every activity. From that, you cannot calculate SROI for all 15 because there is no significant impact on all stakeholders. Secondly, you will be wasting a lot of time. It becomes really a long term project if you have to interact with so many stakeholders. So then you identify on an average, say 4 to 5 stakeholders, which will have a maximum positive effect. When I say positive, it is not necessary that you look at only positive. We also take into consideration negative outcomes, but you want to present it. You want to present it to your board of directors. You want to present this report to your investors. So positive will help you to get more investment, and that is why positives are focused. Negatives are reported, negative indicators, but not really elaborated to that extent because and you normally negative outcomes are written in a more diplomatic way so that it does not give a wrong picture or a negative picture for the organization. So you identify those stakeholders where you have maximum positive indicators. Okay. On an average, as I said, 4 to 5 stakeholders you select and you justify why you have selected those 4 or 5 stakeholders, saying that they will have a maximum social outcomes. Once you have identified these stakeholders, how are you going to collect the data from them? Whether you are going to have a focus group discussions, one-to-one interview, or some sort of a workshop, email or questionnaire. Say when you are dealing with rural population, your project is implemented in rural areas, email or questionnaire does not really help. Uh, Say your program is for women empowerment or farmers, you cannot send them questionnaire and ask them to fill up because they don't know how to fill up. Many of them are not enough educated to give you right indicators. So in that, and some areas you also find a problem of language. So in that case, this type of questionnaire sort of a thing can be implemented only in urban population. And if you are going to a large scale population, then questionnaire is should be used. Most of the time, we use one-to-one interview or focus group discussion. A one-to-one interview because I want to identify qualitative indicators. Still, I interact, observe. It is not possible for me to get those indicators. So we normally we identify the sample. So if there are 100 beneficiaries, we'll take say 20%, 30% of sample. We visit them, we interact with them, prepare an interview schedule and get the data from them. Second way is focus group discussion. Many times, especially if you see programs for women empowerment, like self-help group programs or skill development for women. If you have a new person coming and interacting, many times women are not comfortable having one-to-one discussion. They depend on the head of the family or their husband to answer the questions. And that is what we don't want. So we normally call them in a group and have a focus group discussion with them so that uh, once you develop that a rapport with them, a comfort level with them, they definitely answer. And one person from the group is vocal and she starts interacting, others also slowly give their opinions, they share their experiences, so it becomes easy. So you can use any of this, but you need to have a direct interaction with your stakeholder. That is very important. Certain projects like say reconstruction of houses, repair of houses, or watershed management programs. These type of projects where there is an infrastructure development, it is better that you visit that and see what is actually implemented because that gives you a proper qualitative indicators. So direct interaction with your stakeholders as well as visiting that site or that infrastructure facility that has been built up, it helps you to get right indicators. Uh, Certain projects where you're working with small children. Now, small children, uh, if you interact with them, they will not give you, or they may not be able to give you right answers. The regular questions that you have for adults, you cannot really have it for small children. But you can have so one-to-one interview is not really possible many times with them, but you go to a class, you ask them certain questions where all children are participating, and that is where you observe and capture indicators. That is possible. You look at their academic performances, their involvement into social activities or extracurricular activities, and that is where you capture your data. So depending on your beneficiary or depending on your stakeholder, you will decide which tool to be used for data collection and your sample size and when you are going to collect that data. uh, if if it's a large scale, on an average, as I said, 30% is the population that we take into consideration. But if it's really like I'm looking at complete population of Mumbai or Pune or Delhi, then 30% is too large. So it depends. And it also depends on the organization, how much sample size they are looking at. But something that is practically possible for you to collect data should be taken into consideration. Okay. From 5% to say 30%. If you want to go for a statistical analysis, which is not part of SROI, but in addition to SROI, then you can have about 30% of it. But otherwise, it is not required. Once you have identified your stakeholders and listed down which four or five or three stakeholders you want to focus in your SROI, next step is where you prepare impact map. Now, impact map is based on a concept of theory of change. Theory of change is normally used in social sector, where how particular activity has brought certain change that you identify stepwise. So, suppose say a program in the area of self-help group, women empowerment, self-help formation of self-help group. Now, your activity is formation of SHG and linking it to the bank where they start using financial products and services. That is your activity. Now, what change it has brought for that women, you look at every step. So, starting with input. Now, when you form a self-help group, what is that the woman is contributing to the project? She is coming and attending the self-help group training program, and then being a part of a SHG group, she starts attending meetings. So she's giving her time. Secondly, she is also contributing money to it. Whatever she's saving, 10 rupees, 50 rupees, 100 rupees per month or per a week, based on the time frame they have decided, that is the monetary contribution. Now, both these things are their inputs. Something that is the time that they are contributing, as well as the monetary contribution that is going into the project. Okay. Now, how do I convert her time that she's contributing into monetary value? Is if suppose once a week she comes and attends a meeting and she's spending an hour there. So, what is the value of that 1 hour? What will she do in that 1 hour? She'll go on her farm and help her husband in agriculture, or she's spending that time with her children, or she's spending that time for other household work. So, what does she do with that 1 hour? And what is the value of that particular 1 hour? So, if she's doing some work and earning money, you can easily assign an opportunity cost to it. But if she's not doing anything and she's just doing household work, then what is a you can give or assign a proxy value, that is a assumption based value, that this 1 hour is worth X rupees. Okay. As I said, it will be assumption based on what she's doing in that 1 hour. And if she's doing nothing, she's just sitting at home, that's her afternoon nap time, she's spending that 1 hour to relax, you don't have to assign a value. Just give it a zero value. It is fine. But don't unnecessarily overestimate it. So, if it is possible to assign an opportunity cost to that particular time, assign it. If it is not there, don't assign it. Make it zero. Second is her monetary contribution, what she's saving per week, per month, whatever time frame they have decided, that is her input value. Okay. So you have to write input, what she's contributing to it, and then value those inputs. That is the first thing in impact. Then you list down the output. Now, in same self-help group program, once she has become a part of self-help group, what is a benefit that she gets? That she can access a loan, she can access saving product, she can access micro insurance product. Those are the financial things. So if she has taken 2 loans so far, or she has insured herself and her family members, that is your output. That is the immediate effect and in numbers. So if she has attended, say, self-help group training program once, she has attended even a training program for starting an enterprise or some certain skills like say tailoring or beauty parlor or cake making or baking, something like that. Whatever skill she learned through that program, all that is your output in numbers, and which is an immediate effect of your program. So that is, you will list down her outputs. Then your outcomes come in. So outcomes in is where you see the change that is happening. So if I take a loan, I start my own activity, say small, I buy a sewing machine and start a tailoring activity. With that, my family income goes up. And with my family income going up, I start saving for money for myself, or I'm able to spend money for my child's education today, or I can buy certain assets in the house. I'm able to buy, say, mixer grinder or television or, a two-wheeler in my house, or I'm able to repair my house. All those are your outcomes where you start using that money or using that benefit. Second benefit is where since I'm become a part of self-help group, I learn about how to manage my finances. I learn about saving habits. I learn about saving loan products, insurance products, how they function. So it improves my understanding about managing finances at home. And accordingly, I start saving more, investing in different products. I start going to bank on my own. I open bank account for my children or my other family members. All this is also a social outcome. SHG program also has a apart from financial benefits, it also has a social benefits that I once I start attending program and I become a part of self-help group, I start sharing my problems with those SHG members. There we discussed personal issues as well as village level issues. So we realized that there is a need for cleanliness drive in the village. So all the women in that self-help group conduct a cleanliness drive. Or if there is a large amount of alcoholism in that village, we try and reduce that alcoholism. We create awareness, we take action together. Or if there is any infrastructure development that is required in the village, all our SHG fund we use to improve that infrastructure facility in the village, having like say common toilets, or if there is a problem with the community hall or a temple, we uh, spend our money on that, or having street lights, something like that. So that is also your social outcome. It also improves confidence in me that earlier I was dependent on my husband to uh, take decisions about finances. But today I'm able to do it on my own. I have that confidence that I can go to bank on my own. I can interact with people. I'm comfortable to talk to bank officials. So all that is part of your social outcomes, and how long that lasts or how long that entire outcome slowly bring behavioral change in me, making me more confident, making me more independent, is the impact. So you will list down input, output, outcome, and impact indicators. Of course, impact indicators are not required right now at this stage. You will focus more on outcomes. So in this, you are first listing down all inputs, what every stakeholder is contributing to that project, what is the immediate output that the person is getting from that project. So, number of people trained, number of trees planted, number of water tanks built, whatever it is, immediate effect of, and in numbers. Output is always in numbers. Outcomes are qualitative. So, how it has changed the lifestyle or standard of living, whether there is increase in income or no, what behavioral change that has come in is your outcomes. So, you list down your input, output, and outcomes. When you are valuing it or identifying these indicators, as I said, in forecasting SROI, it is based on your experience. It is based on your research, secondary research that you do, and identify indicators. Whereas when if you're doing it for evaluative, all these indicators you can identify from the organization's records. And once you start getting primary data from your beneficiaries or your stakeholders, this is a more idealistic situation where you go for a evaluative SROI because you can get the real data, true picture of what is happening. Whereas forecasting is more assumption based, as I said. Uh, so let's look at a few outcome indicators to get more clarity on this, because your entire valuation of SROI is based on outcome indicators. So suppose you carry out an activity which is reducing your social isolation. Suppose you have a program for senior citizens. Now, senior citizens, they are not able to travel on their own. Many times after retirement, sitting at home, they get bored. They don't know what to do. For so many years, they have been working, and suddenly there is a change in their lifestyle. They are not able to deal with it. Many times they get depressed. Other family members do not have time for them. So, if you are implementing program for senior citizens where you carry out certain activities where they can meet, they can have some cultural programs, say once a week they can have a small get together or sort of a thing, or you take them to some library, some outing, certain organizations which are doing into that. The outcome for such type of program, one outcome could be reduced social isolation, because otherwise the person was sitting at home dependent on children, not able to do on things on their own. Now you are giving them opportunity to interact with others, go out of the house, meet people with a same age group, so that will reduce your social isolation. That is your outcome. Now, when I say the person's social outcome is reduce social isolation, I have to identify indicators for that. What shows that the social isolation is reduced? Where now they take part in new activities. Earlier, they were not part of, say, social media. Now they go meet people, they learn from each other, start using mobile phones. So now they are part of Facebook, they are part of WhatsApp groups, they develop more friends, start sharing things with each other. So all these are indicators. Okay. Uh, they also learn sometimes certain social skills which they have never learned before, because now they are attending certain get-togethers or say participating in some activities. They look at their hobbies, what they wanted to do earlier. Now they start learning about it, or reading about it. So, those are the indicators. So, you can identify indicators for every social outcome. Uh, another example I can give you is, if we say again self-help group program. A woman is now, you can say, socially empowered. My outcome is socially empowered woman. Now, what do you mean by socially empowered? That now she is more confident. She can take decisions on her own. She is participating in her village level or community level activities. She is taking decisions in the family. She's contributing to decisions. She is not dependent on elders or husband or head of the family for taking decisions, but she's also contributing. She's giving her views in that. Uh, she's interacting in her SHG meetings. She's able to go to the bank. She's able to go to government offices for whatever work she has to do. um, Tomorrow also she can be part of Gram Panchayat. So all this is, these are the indicators that she is socially empowered. So when you are looking at self-help group program and women empowerment, you are not looking at only financial empowerment, that she has saved so much money and she has accessed X number of loans. But you're also looking at other indicators where there is a behavioral change for her, for that lady. Okay. So those indicators you have to identify. It's not the overall outcome, it's the indicators. Now, from these indicators, you will be able to assign values. So I have given certain indicators in this slide. You can see that a person who was unemployed gets a training and now gets employment. So your outcome is gaining and maintaining that employment. Now you have to, now that outcome, you will see the outcome only if the person continues with that work for 12 months. If I take up a job and within a week I get tired or I don't like that company and I quit, then there is no outcome of your program. If I continue that for 1 year, I'm earning something, I'm learning something, that is where you see the outcome. So you have to look at the time frame also. And then you get the data from your Where will you get that data from? Is from the company's database, from the interaction with the person. That is where you identify that data. A second stakeholder, suppose someone who is with physical disability. And now, earlier, that person was not comfortable going out, meeting people, but with your counseling or with your physiotherapy, whatever sessions your organization is conducting, based on that, you are reducing social isolation. So, now how frequently that person interacts with his friends, how frequently he is ready to visit somebody's house or ready to meet others, that is your uh, indicator for identifying that uh, data. Then you have a young person who is not willing to study, who is not interested in developing any skill, and dependent on parents completely. Those young uh, adolescent age group people who are not interested in studying, and they get many times diverted from their goal. So you want to change their behavior, you want them to uh, focus on studies, get good education, settle down properly. So counseling, or you have some extracurricular activities for these children, or support that is provided in the school for these type of children, the social outcome is improved behavior. Now, how do I identify that the person's behavior has improved? That is where I look at indicators, that number of time, his attendance, his academic performance, how many times he has missed the school, is he participating in different activities or no? And where will I get that data from? This is all will be reported by teacher. So that is how you prepare a table and start putting indicators into it. Okay. So for every stakeholder, you will find a social outcome. There could be multiple social outcomes. It is not necessary that you will have only one social outcome. As I said, say self-help group women empowerment, there is a financial outcome, there is a social outcome. Both you have to take into consideration, because uh, financial empowerment is also goal of formation of self-help group. So in that case, financial empowerment, in the sense, if I have saved money or if I have get got loan, how I have used that money and how it has improved my financial condition. That is one outcome. And second is, being a part of self-help group, what are the other skills that I have learned? Maintaining financial books, participating in group activities. As I said, participation at village level or social gatherings, or in family decision making, all those are my social outcomes. So one stakeholder can have multiple outcomes. And as many outcomes you can identify, you should list it down. Here I have given you few examples of it, but you can look at number of outcomes. You don't have to limit at one. Okay. Uh, uh, I'll answer your questions in the thing at the end so that it becomes easy for me. Huh? Okay. Now, time scale that you use, like once you have identified the outcomes, how long these outcomes will last? As I said, there is no standardized process for it. It completely depends on the stakeholders. It completely depends on your project, the sector in which you're working. There is no clear cut criteria or a timeline that you can look at. For example, as I said, if you're looking at environment related project, it might take 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. There is no timeline. There are certain projects where you can see the effect immediately. As I said, education related projects, health related projects, mental health, nahi, physical health. There you can see the results immediately. You know that the person will take 10 sessions, or person will have to undergo this treatment, and then he will be better after 3 months, 6 months. That timeline can be easily identified. But certain projects you don't know. Mental health, you don't know, because the person who is under depression might come out, or you might feel that, okay, that person has come out of depression and is functioning normally. But it is possible that after 2 or 3 sessions, he might go back to where he was. And secondly, um, you cannot use it for all beneficiaries the same timeline, because mental health, I can respond to a session in 2 sessions probably, but somebody else might take 10 sessions for it. So it is very difficult. You can't really have a specific timeline or standardized timeline for every project. But certain areas where you can identify effects easily, uh, that you should capture. As I said, like watershed management program. Now, you don't know when the groundwater table levels will improve, or considering the climate change, changing monsoon patterns, you don't know how your agriculture is going to give you benefits, but you can identify the production that has changed in last 3 years, 5 years with your organization's interventions. So the organization which is working in agriculture sector, providing support like seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, training to farmers, and apart from that, also doing watershed management projects in that area, so that overall a comprehensive package is given to a farmer, where there is a agricultural material or resources are provided. There are water availability projects are implemented. They are also linked with government schemes, and you give a complete package to a farmer to improve his agricultural production. Though you cannot see the environmental effect or identify the time scale for it, but you can see the effect on the farmer's productivity. So there you can see that, okay, he was able to get produced worth 1 lakh 3 years back. Now he's able to get produced worth 5 lakh in a year. So that changed. Or he is experimenting more today with your training. Earlier, he was looking only at one crop. Now he's looking at multiple crops. Apart from farming, he's also looking at animal husbandry. He's also looking at uh, experimenting with fishing, those small ponds that you have it in an agricultural farm. So doing multiple activities, composting, vermicomposting. So a lot of other activities that he's doing today to improve his financial condition. So those indicators can be taken into consideration. So you do not have to focus on one indicator and say, "Oh, 20 years we'll have to wait." You can look at the indicators which are available and see that this is bringing in the change, and look at the time frame for those indicators. Okay, so again, based on the data that you're getting from the primary resources, you will decide the timelines. And there is no fixed timelines. Every stakeholder wise, also the timeline could be different. It is not necessary that if you say 10 years, it will take 10 years for this outcomes. For every stakeholder, it will be 10 years. Not necessary. It depends on the stakeholder. It depends on the outcome. It depends on the activity. You have to identify the timeline, how long it will sustain. So something like, say, participants who is going for a IT training program. Uh, Now that IT training program will give them benefit for 4 to 5 years. Uh, See, our education system, any education that we get, we have to upgrade ourselves. So we did primary education that remains with us for a lifetime. But that does not mean that we stop our education at primary level. We go for a secondary, higher secondary, then we go for a specific professional education, and then we decide, okay, after implementing or using that skill, at what point we have to upgrade. So even if we are working, even if we are doing certain jobs, uh, after 4 years, 5 years, we undergo some training, we go for a higher education, something to upgrade ourselves. That is where our employment opportunities, our income levels go up. Otherwise, we'll get stagnated at one point. So that time frame we have to look at. That suppose I'm doing MBA, how long that MBA will help me? After 5 years, I'll have to do some other course. I'll have to learn something new skill to get at a better position. Because industries are changing, especially if you're looking at IT related thing. They are coming up with new technology, new systems regularly. So you have to upgrade yourself. So one training is good enough for how many years? Okay. Children that they get a preschool intervention. Now, as I said, primary education or preschool education will make you literate, but that is not enough for income generation. That is not enough for employment opportunities. So that remains with you, but beyond that, you have to go and learn something new. So that lasts with you for 10 years. Beyond that, you have to improvise, you have to learn more. Okay. So every activity, how long it will last, that you have to identify. And that time scale you have to give for your every stakeholder's social outcome. Okay. Now, once you have identified these outcomes, suppose we go back to same example of self-help group for women. Now she's able to go to bank. We will look at social outcomes, not financial outcomes. She's able to go to a bank and do her activities on her own. That is the outcome. Now, for that, for SROI, we have to give a monetary value. Okay. Now, when we assign a monetary value, it is called proxy because there is no fixed value or a market rate or a monetary indicator for social outcomes. I become a confident to go to a bank and deposit money, withdraw money, fill up my passbook, whatever activities I'm doing. So that confidence is a social outcome. Now, that confidence, how do I assign a monetary value to it? So that is called proxy. That is what we assign in SROI. Now, in that, if you have a clear cut indicator, like vocational training program, I get a job and my income level has gone up. Earlier, my income was 5,000 rupees. Now it is 8,000 rupees. That 3,000 rupees is your value of your outcome. But something like my confidence level going up, there cannot be a market rate for it. There cannot be a clear cut monetary value to it. So originally, the Social Value International Organization, they came up with the concept that beneficiary should assign a value to it. So you ask a beneficiary, getting that confidence, how much value will you assign to that? Now, in that case, I can, as I said, I can assign 10,000 to it. Somebody else can assign 12,000. Somebody else can assign 10 lakhs to it because that confidence is so important for that lady. Okay. Now, this is very tricky. And if you are interviewing 100 people and everyone is giving you completely different figure, you cannot really come to an average which will give you a realistic picture. Okay. So that concept is very difficult to use. So in that case, what we do is if she's going to a bank, how much money she's spending to going to a bank? Or if she would have asked her husband that you go and do this 1, 2, 3, 4 work, how much money her husband will spend leaving his 1 day's work, going to a bank, that amount we take as a proxy for that activity. Again, as I said, it is a assumption based. There is no clear value assigned to it. I have to identify the nearest indicator for it. Okay. So in that case, I try and look at what shows my confidence level has gone up, that I'm able to travel alone. So whatever money I spend on bus, whatever money I spend on taking auto or whatever to that place, that monetary indicator I take as a indicator for going to a bank. This is an assumption based. Okay. I'll give you another example. Something like, mm, say you have implemented, say, watershed development project. Watershed development project in which you have constructed check dams in 10 villages. Now, in that, I will have clear-cut indicators. With check dam, farmers' agricultural productivity has gone up. With that agricultural productivity going up, their income levels have gone up. That is my clear indicator. I can identify what they were earning 2 years back before the check dam was constructed and what they are earning today with the increased productivity. That amount, I take it as a financial proxy. But a woman who was spending 2 hours going to walking 10 kilometers and fetching water, now her that hard work is reduced. There is a water availability in the village. Okay, so her income is not going up. There is no clear cut income indicator for it. So I identify what was she doing in that 2 hours, whether she could have gone and helped her husband in farming, or she could have started her own activity, say tailoring, embroidery, whatever skill she has, a catering, whatever skill set she has, she could have started that activity, and how much money she could have earned in that 2 hours. That amount, I take it as a proxy. Or second amount that I can look at it is her health expenses. She had to walk 2 hours to fetch water. So her nutrition level, her physical problems that she was facing, how much money she was spending on her medical expenses, that has reduced now with availability of water. So those medical expenses is a nearest indicator for me to look at financial proxy. So, as I said, if you have a clear indicator, increase in income, where you have vocational training programs, you have farming programs, you start your own enterprise, or you get employment, you have clear indicators. But there are certain areas where you do not have clear indicators. So you look at other expenses, medical expenses that has reduced, travel expenses that has reduced. So you try and find out nearest indicator and assign a value to it. It's a assumption based value if you do not have a direct indicator, income indicator related to your project. Okay. And that you take as a proxy. And that's why we call it a proxy. Okay. So that value is taken for your outcome. So let's look at few examples. A person with a mental health problem. Now his mental health has improved with your project. Okay. What says that the mental health has improved? Amount of time that is spent on socializing. Now he is spending more time on specializing. He is engaging in new activities. He is participating in new activities. And he has started using mental health services on a regular basis. Okay. Now, with that, what are the indicators or financial indicators that can be assigned to these social outcome indicators? One is if I start participating in new activities, I either join a class, some club, some network, I take a membership, a library membership, or something where I'm participating. That value can be taken as one indicator that now I am participating in different activities. If there is a value or fees attached to it, that value can be taken. Secondly, percentage of income spent on leisure activities. So since I'm going out today, I go for movies, I go for parties. That is how much money I'm spending on those activities, or I'm ready to travel, small holidays I plan. So, how much money I'm spending on that? That can be a second proxy which can be looked at. And third is counseling sessions. Now I understood that the mental health services are important for me and I should attend more counseling sessions. So, how much money I'm spending on those counseling sessions to improve my mental health? So, these indicators I take as a financial proxy, the amount I take as my outcome value. Okay, that is the benefit value that I look at. Second is let's look at, say, local community. Is your stakeholder improved access to local services? That is village level, if you have introduced certain services, certain programs, my access to those services has improved. uh, Indicator is how many people are actually taking up those services, availing those schemes, is your indicator. And with those schemes, the time, travel cost, the benefits that I'm getting, you look at the financial proxies indicator from that. So, like that, you identify for every stake. So, every program, you will list down stakeholders, their outcome indicators, and financial proxies attached to it. Now, here I have given one example. As I said, I did one project a few months back on with Aga Khan for their housing reconstruction project. So their beneficiaries were of reconstruction of houses. They identified few houses which are in really bad condition, since those areas are prone to earthquake. And after Kutch earthquake, the housing conditions were really bad for those beneficiaries, and repair was not enough. They had to reconstruct those houses. It was in such a bad state. So they reconstructed houses of 182 beneficiaries. For that, they asked beneficiaries to partially fund the project. So if I'm one of the beneficiary, uh, whatever money I can contribute, 25%, 50%, depending on my financial capacity. They evaluated my financial capacity, and they asked that person to contribute accordingly, 25%, 50%, 75%. So my contribution to this project is the partial funding that I'm giving, say 25%. So that is my input value. Secondly, I also give input in designing the house, because I belong to a particular community. I've been living in particular area. Uh, I have certain housing design which is there for generations. Like certain areas, you will find that toilets are constructed outside the house, or if I have senior citizens or if I have disabled people in the family, I need little disabled friendly or senior citizen friendly housing. So depending on that, I gave inputs that I need these many rooms. This is should be there in my house. So designing inputs. These are the two inputs that have been contributed by the beneficiary. Now, partial funding, I know the monetary value, how much money I have contributed to the project. But in terms of designing, I'm just giving an idea that as a resident, what I need. So there cannot be any input value. So we did not assign any input value for designing. We assign only input value for the funding contribution that I have given to the project. Okay. Output is total 182 houses were rebuilt. So that is your numbers, immediate output after the project. So that is your 182 houses were constructed. Outcome indicators are improved quality of living, uh, reduced expenses on house repair and maintenance, because earlier the house was in such a bad condition that every monsoon or every 6 months I had to spend some money on repair. Now I'm not spending that money, so that expenses are reduced. Reduce stress for the head of the family, because anytime the house can the roof can fall or something can go wrong in the house, so that stress was there, which is now reduced. Those houses had one or two rooms. It was a small house. So big families, especially those who have kids who are about to get married or recently got married, they were having conflicts. They were not happy. There was everyone needs their own space, a little privacy, their functional area. So that was now with new house, those problems were solved. So family conflicts were reduced, and it improved the family relationship, and it also improved their social interaction and participation in social activities, because earlier they were not comfortable inviting people in the house, their relatives, friends, community people, or villagers, because there was no space. The house was in bad condition, so they were really ashamed of inviting people in the house. But now with the new house, they are very happy. They invite relatives, they celebrate festivals together in the house. So that has improved their social interaction. So this is your social outcomes. Now, what are the indicators or financial indicators which can be used to uh, identify monetary benefit? One is purchase of different assets. Now, since they have got a new house, they purchase a lot of new assets apart from furniture, new TV, refrigerator, AC, whatever they could afford. They purchase those new assets. Now, value of those assets is considered for SROI calculation. Then they were spending every year money on house repairs. Now that money is saved. Every year, whatever 5,000, 6,000 they were spending on repairs, that is now saved. So that has increased their savings. That amount is a second financial indicator that we took. Third is improved productivity. In few houses, we also found out that the women have started working because they had an independent room. So one who learned about beauty parlor skills, she started her home beauty parlor. Other lady who started a catering unit. Third lady started a tailoring unit because she had her, and in designing or while designing the house, they requested a small space for that functional area. So they started their own income generating activity that increased the family income. So improve the productivity and income. So that indicator was also taken into consideration. And number of social events they participated, where we identified that with these social events, how much money on this they are spending on these social events. So if they're uh, participating in some festivals or community level events or village level activities, if there are spending some money into it, to participate. So these four indicators we took as a financial indicators for these beneficiaries, and value of them, these indicators were given by those beneficiaries. For example, on an average, we said that one TV, one refrigerator, furniture for two bedrooms and a living room, how much will it cost in that area? So we took that value, say 1 lakh rupees, we took that value as a indicator for it. They were spending 5,000 rupees on an average for a house repair. So we take 5,000, we took 5,000 as the saving amount for them. So like that, we identified on an average amount spent on every indicator, and that value was taken as a outcome indicator. Now, once you have taken these indicators and identified their values, there are four terms we use which we reduce from these outcomes. First is called dead weight. Every benefit is not because of your activity. That benefit a person might get because of other activities. See, if there are number of NGOs working in our country, every area you will find number of NGOs are functioning. It is not only you are contributing to social change. There are other organizations who are also contributing. So that benefit need not be linked to only your organization. It can be because of government's effort. It can be the change that is automatically happening because of the changing environment. So that change, which is not because of you, which otherwise also would have happened, that value you have to reduce. Now, how do you get that information? If there are any government records, you take into consideration that. For example, employment rate, unemployment rate, uh, you know, um, child mortality rate, all those indicators which normally government captures, and it is available in secondary sources. So you know that in this area or in this region, that employment rate changes every year by 1%, 2%, whatever it is, that you take into consideration and reduce your value. That is dead weight. It has to be reduced from your benefit. Okay. If you do not have that data, it's fine. Don't take that. Take that value as a zero. For example, for that housing reconstruction, government is not implementing any housing reconstruction project. They are giving money under that Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, but it is not applicable to everybody. All beneficiaries are not able to access it. And secondly, they are only giving funding support. Organization here, Aga Khan is helping them to rebuild the house, reconstruct the house completely. So there is no other organization who is doing it. So there was no question of dead weight. We did not use any dead weight for it because there is no other organization involved who is doing similar work, neither a government agency nor any other NGO in that particular area. Second terminology that we reduce from that is displacement. When there is a one positive outcome for your own beneficiary, there could be a negative effect of that to somebody else. Okay. For example, something like say self-help group program. Now, woman is empowered. She's taking her financial decisions. She's doing things on her own. Maybe she starts an income generating activity and it is adding value to family income. That is a positive outcome. But at the same time, it can have a negative outcome on her family members, where she was earlier doing things what her in-laws or what her husband was telling her to do. Now she is taking independent decisions. Earlier she was dependent on them. Now they feel that she's going out of control, and that can create a discomfort in the family. Okay, that can have more conflicts, that she thinks that she can do things on her own, and husband is unhappy or in-laws are unhappy about it. Now that is not what we are expecting. Okay, but that can be a negative outcome. So we have to take that consideration. And if there are any outcomes or any families which are reporting that because now she is earning on her own, she's taking decisions, she's not even asking us anything, and we are fighting or we are having a conflict every second day. Now that is a negative outcome in the family. That value. So one positive outcome creating second negative outcome, that is a displacement. Now that value has to be reduced. So if you can, as I said again, if you can identify that negative outcome, it is not intended, it is unintended negative outcome, that value also has to be reduced. So where you are creating one outcome for your beneficiary, a positive outcome, some other beneficiary or some other stakeholder is having a negative outcome, that has to be reduced from your value. Okay. Third is attribution. See, many times organizations do not work in isolation. There are a number of partnering agencies who provide knowledge support, who provide technical support. For example, organization which is working in agriculture. Now, they will not have expertise about soil inspection or understanding soil quality, water quality, all that. So they tie up with different agencies. One who will do, soil inspection and say what needs to be done. Somebody who will do uh, water related activities, third party who is giving or experimenting with agricultural seeds and their saplings and all that. So they tie up with different agencies to provide knowledge support. So if this project is successful and you're getting social outcome, it is not only your contribution. Those other parties which are working with you are also getting benefited by that. So their value is also has to be attributed. So if you feel that their contribution to your project is 10%, 5%, whatever you identify, that has to be reduced from your benefit. It is not your outcome, it is their contribution. So they also need to be attributed for that benefit, and that value has to be reduced from your value. And last is a drop off that you reduce from SROI, because your outcome will not last for every beneficiary for that time period. Say vocational training program, 100 people complete a vocational training program and take up job, but out of 100 maybe 5 leave job after 2 to 3 months. So for them the outcome does not last for 1 year or 5 years, whatever timeline you are looking at. Similarly, self-help group program, women become part of self-help group program, they start saving, but once the group is dysfunctional, they do not continue with saving, or they do not start their income generating activity, or they do not visit bank. They have learned it, but they discontinue with it. So there is a drop off. The outcome is not sustained for that particular. So that percentage, so out of 100, 5% are not doing it, that percentage has to be reduced. So these four indicators, if you identify, it is not necessary that every project will have it. And again, you will get the data on it. If that data is available, or if you can identify from your primary data these percentages, it has to be reduced from your total benefit. And then you calculate this value for year one, year two. Say, as I said, 3 to 5 years. You can do it for 1 year, you can do it for 10 years. There is no fixed timeline. You calculate total outcome. So the indicators, social outcome indicators that you listed earlier, those outcome indicators, you assign value to it, take a total of it, and then for year one, year two, year three, whatever time frame you are looking at, you assign value. You time value of money, the concept, if you are aware, you use a present value calculation, and then you calculate SRY. This SROI is then reported. Uh, like we prepare social impact assessment report, similarly, you prepare SROI report. As I said, most of the time, we prepare SROI report in addition to social impact assessment report. So you give impact map, that is your input, output, the table showing input, output, outcome indicators, then financial proxies, and then the entire calculation. That is called impact map. And in addition to that, how did you go about it? The scope of your SROI, how did you select the stakeholders? And then if you want to add, you can also add some quotes, case studies, because since you are doing a primary data research, you can uh, collect certain case studies or success stories and add it to it, because then it gives value. If you are just writing down the indicators in impact map, uh, it does not really elaborate how the person feels or how the beneficiaries are expressing their views. So you can add little case studies, quotes, success stories to it, how it has benefited them, which will give a overall, uh, you know, value addition to your report. So this is what SROI concept is. So normally, as I said, SROI is used in addition to social impact assessment report, but you can just have SROI as well. But just having SROI, many times it's proxy based, assumption based. uh, People don't accept it because they feel the values are exaggerated values. Because I have to say that, okay, if I'm getting an outcome in the first year and the outcome will last for 5 years, I multiply it by 5 years. So in that case, that is a, you can say, overrated value. Many times investors or board of director feels that it's a overrated value. And it is comparatively a difficult concept to accept because it's an assumption based. Like your regular financial evaluation, you have clear cut interest rates. You know how much money you are earning on particular investment. Here it is completely assumption based, hypothetical. Secondly, the problem with SROI is it is not very common concept. It was developed in a developed country, UK, which is now started using in India or other areas. But their uh, benefits, their outcomes are completely different from our outcomes, what we see in Indian context, what we see in our developmental projects. So in that case, it is very difficult to use those indicators. Thirdly, your consultant or whoever who is conducting SROI should be able to identify right indicators. There cannot be any standardization. Every sector is different: education, health, environment, livelihood. Number of sectors are there in social area, and every sector has again number of activities into it for different beneficiaries, and their activities are bringing a social change in different areas. So your outcome indicators are also varied in every sector. So you cannot really have a standardized process for social impact assessment or SROI. There are no standardized indicators. The indicators you have to capture from your beneficiaries, from your stakeholders when you interact with them. So the person who is getting that data, primary data, has to be trained to collect that right data, uh, apart from interviewing or interacting with people, he should be also able to observe a lot of indicators. Like for that reconstruction of houses, when we go there, it's not only the person telling his or her story that he was living in dilapidated houses and now this new house, but that person also how has to observe what facilities have been provided in the new house, how it has changed their standard of living or quality of life, whether how it is beneficial for children, senior citizens. So those observation skills are also required in this, and then only you can identify right indicators, social outcome indicators, and then assigning value. For every indicator, you may not be able to assign value. Something like mental health program. A mental health program, cost of counseling session or cost of treatment is the only indicator probably you will be able to identify. But how will you assign a value to a person who is coming out of depression slowly, but not really participating in social activities, not going out so often, still not that much behavior change has happened. So in that case, those indicators, it is very difficult to identify monetary value. So if you can identify nearest monetary value, you use it. If it is not possible, don't give complete assumption based, hypothetical values, because it is very difficult to justify it. That is a big problem. So where there is an income related indicator, you can easily identify, but other indicators, it is slightly difficult. So if you can identify certain expenses that are reduced, savings that have gone up, you use that. But otherwise, don't assign those indicators. Okay, that is about SROI. Now let me just look at the questions and uh, okay. First was, how do you quantify negative results and associated loss to the community? As I said, when you are identifying positive outcomes, you also try and identify negative outcomes. And if there is a monetary indicator linked to that uh, negative outcome. For example, you can say, now, in this particular project where reconstruction of houses, this reconstruction of houses was done for a specific community by this organization. Now, other villagers or those who do not fall into the category of that income criteria which that organization decided before reconstruction of houses, uh, they had a conflict with the organization because they certain people who belong to the same community, uh, but they did not get the benefit of the project because their income levels were high, and that created a conflict between the organization or between the community members and that particular family, which is a negative outcome. Now, that negative outcome, we did not really take into consideration because there cannot be any monetary value assigned to it. But if you can identify a monetary value that suppose the person is contributing to community level, is giving donations or participating in community activities, and now that person has suddenly stopped because he feels that he's not getting benefit from it. That could be a negative outcome or negative value that can be used for it. We did not come across any incident like that, so that value we did not include in the report. But if there is any, you can include that. Is there some training program that we can undergo for getting to know more about the subject? See, in India, there is no SROI certification program yet. There was one organization in Chennai who was doing SROI, but I'm not really aware of how good that program is and whether it is beneficial for you or no. I did my program in UK with Social Value International. Uh, they have a 3 days training program, and they also in between they had offered one program in India. You can go to their website and check if they are offering anything in India. But otherwise, there is no formal SROI training program. This we included in our part-time MBA social entrepreneurship program in NMIMS after learning about it. And through that, I have been conducting workshops on that. Since we had only 2 hours of session, I could not do practical activity today. But otherwise, I conduct full day workshops where with worksheets and proper case studies, we calculate SRY in the class. In which criteria should be considered while selecting sample for SROI? See, sample most of the time is decided by the organization, which is more practical, easy to get, because you have a time frame to submit the report, normally 2 to 3 months time frame. So, as I said, 10%, 30%, depending on the total size of your population, sample is selected. Uh, like for Aga Khan, they wanted to cover 100% sample, but they were okay to spend 6 months on the report because they wanted to capture maximum information possible. So time frame was not a criteria for them. So it was possible to look at 100% population, and it was, as I said, 182 households visiting them was not a difficult thing. But it depends on the total population. So there is no fixed criteria. Most of the time, organization decides what sample size they want for the project. How does one attribute a monetary value to outcomes like change in social behavior in your SHG uh, example? So with social behavior, a person is able to do certain things. She starts her own income generating activity. Um, she is participating in Gram Panchayat activities or village level activities. And if she's spending something there or able to save something there, that monetary indicator we take into consideration. Or if she's starting, as I said, her own enterprise, her income goes up. Now, that is also an increase in her confidence, increase in her self esteem, where she starts her income generating activity. Anything, tailoring hair, she can have a beauty parlor, she can have a small kirana shop. Whatever she starts in the business, there is an increase in income. Or you will find that SHG members together, they start an activity. They start, a business for pickle and papad and all that, or they work as a, unit and provide catering services, whatever skills they possess. So there you can identify income indicators. Or she purchases something for herself. Earlier, she would spend money only for the family members, but with her own savings, she decides to purchase a jewelry or something for her own requirement. That amount we take as an indicator because there she gives importance to herself. So that indicator can be, but that again you get to know when you interact with the stakeholders, and if they clearly indicates that this benefit they have got from the project. Otherwise, you cannot identify those indicators. It's difficult. So, this is what SROI is. Um, I hope this session was useful. Those who are interested in this and want more information can anytime contact me. I can share documents or secondary literature on this. Um, and there is a Social Value International has developed a manual on this, which is available online. You can go to their website and use it for future reference. Um, so thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed it and it was useful for everybody.
Yeah. Uh, uh, Thank you, ma'am. As we conclude this enlightening webinar on social return on investment, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Ananya Prabhavalkar ji
Thank you.
for her insightful presentation. Your expertise has provided us with a deep understanding for SROI significance and application. And I would also like to thank, on behalf of Institute of Social Auditors of India, all the participants for your participation and valuable questions. Your involvement has actually enriched our discussion and made this event a success. So let us take forward our knowledge gained today to make a positive and impact on the
Thank you.
social objective which we actually want to attain. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks to
Thank you,
all the
everybody.
participants.
Thank you all. Bye.